Welcome to Interviewing People, where we will talk to a variety of people with a focus on how they ended up where they are today, what they learned from their mistakes, and what advice they have for our futures. Enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of Interviewing People, where we are continuing to talk to a variety of people in a variety of careers with the goal of helping us understand how people arrived at where they currently are and how we might be able to use that information to develop our own future careers. So today we have with us Pam Hamlin, who is the director of Millstream and who is also the owner of Trends on Main here in Findlay. And she's going to be talking to us a little bit about what steps she's taken to develop her business and what advice she might have for us. So Pam, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
And I'd love for you to just take a minute and talk a little bit about your background. You know, are you originally from Findlay?
Yeah.
How did you end up where you are today?
Okay. I actually was born in Detroit, Michigan. Don't hold that against me if you're not a Michigan fan. Was born in Detroit, moved here with my parents when I was in 3 or 4 years old. But all my schooling has been here in Findlay. So attended Findlay City Schools, also attended St. Michael's School, and went to the University of Findlay. So all of my schooling has been in the Findlay area. But always knew I wanted to be a teacher. My mom was a teacher at St. Michael's for many, many years. She just retired last year. So grew up in her classroom and knew that I wanted to be a teacher. So I went to the University of Findlay and got my undergrad degree, and then went back to get a master's degree because I knew I wanted to be an administrator one day. I had, whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, I worked in a building that had several administrators in a short amount of time. So I was able to see real quickly what worked and what didn't work. And I also, at the same time that I was a teacher, I was working retail. So I love retail, but it's not really conducive for a family. So retail, there was a lot of nights and weekends involved. So I kind of put that on the back burner, although I worked all through college in a retail store and had some positions where I was in charge of not manager, but close to what they call the key holder, or somebody that did some of the managerial roles. But anyway, went into education, have a family, ended up, we have 4 kids. And so continued, to be a teacher and then eventually an administrator. At the time that I was at Central Middle School, my daughter was in high school, and one of our kids, and she was thinking about going to New York City to become an actress. So she wanted to go to school to pursue theater. And so we found a school in the summertime that allowed her to take an 8-week intensive in New York City. So it was in the summer. She went there for 8 weeks and she took some coursework there. And it was between her junior and senior year. Well, I wasn't super comfortable with allowing her to be free reign of the city without any chaperone. So even though she was staying with a family friend of ours, I would fly into the city a lot. And when I was there, I was able to establish relationships with the shopping district there. And so that's kind of how my business started. I started making jewelry when I was a teacher at Central Middle School, and just rented a very, very small space out of a hair salon. And I said, can I sell my jewelry here? And the lady was like, sure. So I paid her rent, and they sold my jewelry that I made. But when I went to New York City that one summer and I started exploring kind of the wholesale district, it opened my eyes to clothing, more accessories, hats, scarves, all sorts of things. And so really got into that. And so brought some things back, and my little space that I was renting got full very quickly. And so it wasn't until that we did that for about 2 years. And then when my daughter actually went to school, her freshman year of college, that's when we decided to make the jump into purchasing a location on Main Street. So I know the kids won't remember this, but there was a store called the Paint Spot. It was in downtown Findlay, and it's currently where the Urban Market Boutique is. That was our very first store. Major storefront. So we started selling and starting a business there. Since then, we've expanded, and we'll probably get into some of that, but we have moved on to the bigger location where we're currently at. But we'll talk more about that adventure because there's lots of things to be said about where the business has gone and how some of the things that we've learned along the way. So that's kind of my background. So now I juggle. I'm a principal by day, and I kind of still do retail. Not quite all nights and weekends, but because we have employees that do that. But it's as an owner, you can kind of pick and choose your hours a little bit different.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Now, your son Blake is not able to join us today, which is perfectly fine. But as I was looking at some of his background and specifically on Facebook and so forth, I saw that basically his businesses are LLCs.
Yes.
And is your business also an LLC?
Yes, it is.
Can you talk to students a little bit about what that means and maybe why you have that designation for your business and so forth?
Yeah, so that was where I would say my husband does this part of the business. He's in charge of all this kind of stuff behind the scenes. I do the shopping. He does all this kind of stuff. But I can tell you, LLC brings that you have a little more protection when it comes to ownership of a business, and you have more rights to different things that you can acquire. The very first step to owning a business is to get a business license. Very easy to obtain, and it's I can't remember how much a business license is, but it's not very expensive. But you do have to provide documentation and so forth. And we were not an LLC. We didn't apply for that until maybe when we knew that the business was going to get super serious. So probably 2 years maybe into our realm. But yeah, it certainly does give us it kind of gives us a little more protection when it comes to things that could happen. There's things as a business owner that I just never thought about. Example, where we currently are located, we have a place for a car to park right in front of our store that's owned, obviously it's on Main Street, so it's owned by the city. But sometimes when the walkways aren't clear in the wintertime, and if somebody were to fall, we had one year where someone tried to sue us because the walkways weren't clear and so forth. And so you kind of have to have your ducks in a row and make sure you've got things lined up, in situations like that, so you're not scrambling.
Right. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, LLC stands for Limited Liability Corporation, I think.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, good. And I think it's also good for students to hear that you didn't initially have that was something, like you said, that when we realized this was going to grow and so forth, that's when we worry about that. So as high school students, more than likely, that's down the road for them.
Correct.
In the business license you said business license.
A business license, yeah.
Yeah, that's really that first step that they would definitely take. And I think I did have a student look that up, and I think it's like $25. So
I was gonna say like 30 or something.
Right.
It's an application, and it's just not very expensive. Yeah.
Right. So obviously you do a lot with, like you said, the dresses, accessories, so forth. One thing that we've really been talking about with students is the need. There's times where they need to take some risks when it comes to preparing for the future, but we also know that those need to be calculated risks. And I think owning a business, there's always risk involved with that. I guess where do you fall, or I guess how do you see risk playing a role in what you do, and how do you handle risk so that you don't overextend yourself and so
Sure.
forth?
So honestly, you have to be a risk taker, in my opinion, to own a business. You can't be afraid to fail. You have to be smart about it. And what I say about that is the more research you do, the better before you dive into something. If you can test the market, that's even better. So in our case, and let me just, I'll talk about Blake too, but in our case, we tested the market with a very small rent fee that we paid at that hair salon. We tested the market there. We started getting a following. We started getting our name out. Before we jumped into a storefront, where the expenses were a little bit more and we had more space, which we knew we needed more inventory and stuff. We tested out the market first in that small location. I would say that might be the downfall of businesses. Sometimes they get too big too quick. They're not prepared. Or maybe they put money into something that they think is really going to go well and it doesn't. So the more you have to be able to take a risk, but you got to do it also cautiously and make sure that you're being smart about it. In regards to Blake, Blake was as a young boy, 7, 8, 9, he was mowing lawns. So he was not a kid that was playing with his friends, to be honest with you. He was mowing lawns, he was saving his money, and every year he would upgrade his merchandise. So he would, for Christmas, as a 10-year-old, he asked for a backpack blower. He wanted to be out blowing leaves and doing things like that. So he has always taken his money and reinvested it in his business. So he started mowing lawns. He then one day says, you know what? We were actually driving down I-75 and he saw in the back of someone's yard a bounce house. And he goes, I wonder how much those cost. So that inquisitive mind. So I said, you know what? I've got a friend, or actually it was someone that lived in our neighborhood. He has a couple bounce houses. Why don't we call him and just pick his brain? And he's like, Blake, I will sell you my 2 bounce houses because I just don't have time anymore. He and his son were doing it together. And he goes, I don't have time anymore. I'll sell it to you. So Blake made a deal with him. He took his lawn mowing money and he reinvested it in his bounce house business. Blake then continued to reinvest his money. He rented 2 bounce houses to begin with. And now he's 21. He was 11 or 12 when he got his first 2. He's 21 and he would tell you exactly how many he has, but I'm going to guess maybe 17, 18 of them. He owns 2 trucks, 2 trailers that run his bounce house business. He's got a garage that he uses or a big warehouse to, that kind of thing. I'll be honest with you, Blake then got a little bit like, oh my gosh, this is hard work to move bounce. They're 500 pounds, some of them.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. And he got busy. So he was in high school and he got busy. And so he said, you know what, I'm going to hire people to kind of do that part of the business. I'll do all the scheduling and that kind of thing. And if I can go on a run, I will, but I need someone that's not quite as busy. So he was participating in his sports in high school. And he started hiring some people to help run his business. Now, to be honest with you, I don't think he moved 1 bounce house last summer. He has it completely in someone else's hands. They run the entire trucks are coming, like he schedules it all, but I don't think he's moving bounce houses now because Blake's mind is a little more, he sticks with things, but he's on to a new idea. So his brain is really good about coming up with ideas. And so the next idea he was moved on to, he collecting leaves. Right now, he just opened a business with my brother-in-law and they have a dumpster business where they can deliver dumpsters to people's houses and pick them up. And, so if they're cleaning out, it's kind of a big dumpster. Because he had that equipment sitting on his property that he wasn't using, he said, let's put it to action. And so they created this dumpster business. And at the same time, they enclosed the trailer and also made it into a leaf pickup business. And that's where he's currently at today, or he'd be joining us. Right. So he's a hands-on kid. He loves to work with his hands and he doesn't sit very well. If you tell him to sit and watch a movie, he's asleep. He doesn't sit very well. He's been like that since he was little. So he chose, I remember in high school, he said to me, Mom, I don't think I want to go to college. And had that been my first child, it would have been like, oh, you got to go to college. That's the only way to, make it in this world. But he's my last child. And to be honest with you, I knew that he was going to be successful because he's a hard worker. So he right out of high school, he continued to work his bounce houses. Now he's got the leaf blowing and the trash pickup kind of thing. And then within the last year, he also went into pallet sales. And right now that's his bread and butter. So he buys companies sell back to different other companies, liquidators, if boxes are dented or something gets returned. They sell them to these pallet companies, and then Blake then divides it up, takes pictures, and does auctions and stuff online, which I didn't mention. Auctions was where we thought he was going to go. He really loves to attend auctions, and he loves, because his mind goes so quickly, he loves to be able to sell things. And so he has an apprentice license. And we really thought at this point, he would be going into auctioneering. He still is, but he's doing these other things too. So he's got a lot of balls up in the air. But let me tell you, each time I would say it all came with a risk. I remember a year ago when he said he wanted to start into the pallet business, and my husband and I looked at each other and we told him that was a silly idea. There's no money in that. Well, I hate to say it, he's proved us wrong. And so you kind of have to follow your gut at the same time, I guess. As a business owner, you got to follow your gut, but be smart about it, because it's very easy to fall into making, just because it's the newest, shiniest thing. And then you start, you got to be careful that, because it all comes with a price, and usually it's money related. So you have to be really careful. So that's kind of, I don't know, what was the question? I kind of forget.
Well, that was, you did. Talking about risk and how do you manage risk, and how do you know what is a good risk, and, your idea that, hey, sometimes you have to go with your gut, but you also need to not overextend yourself. But, I think it's also interesting that it sounds like he came to you for some advice. Now, he didn't necessarily go with what you said, because you maybe tried to dissuade him from that. But I think that's a good thing for students to hear, that, run your ideas by some other people, see what they think. And
Blake constantly runs his ideas by us, even to this day. Blake is now, he's our baby, but he just got married. So each week he'll run by, do you think this is a good load I should buy for the pallet? And we'll say, oh, you know what? Yeah, that might be good. Or no, I don't think that's going to sell. So he's constantly running ideas by us. Sometimes he listens and follows what we think, and sometimes he doesn't, and he takes that risk. But he is he's really good about tossing ideas out and before he just jumps into something.
Right.
So that's a good point.
Good. So in our class, we've talked a lot about branding, and I've tried to encourage students to take control of their branding, to make sure that what people are seeing from them, that it's what they want them to see. It's something that's going to impress them, so forth. And obviously with your business, I would look at advertising as being a big part of your branding. As you have done that over the years, what have you learned about how to best develop your brand, Trends on Main, and, maybe any problems that you've run into with that you've learned from, and so forth?
Okay. So you need to understand, first and foremost, I can't stress this enough, you are your brand. Okay. So if you are not, what I mean by that is, if I was trying to sell something that I don't even like, and I don't even use, and I don't wear, or then it would be very hard for me. People look at me and they are automatically all the time assume that I got everything from Trends on Main, which I didn't. I mean, I do shop other places, but you have to be your brand. So how you carry yourself, when we're out in public, we've got a Trends on Main sticker on our car. We have to make sure we're making good choices out in public, because they see that and they think about that. So, we have to be really, really cautious when it comes to making sure that you are what you're trying to represent. Okay. When it comes to branding in general, as far as, logo and advertising and things like that, that is really, Blake did take a marketing class at Millstream Career Center. So he was in our marketing program. And so he, had some experience there. But when I started my business, I had no formal classes or seminars or anything. Now, since then, I've taken seminars and different things where I've been able to learn, but I've really had to hire people for that. So, I would hire people and say, and I'll be honest with you, we've struggled with brand because we had a logo. We didn't really like our logo, and then we changed it. We changed it 3 times. We have, because we've had to go with the times, we've had to, tap into a website, get a website created. We didn't really like the one we had. So we, went a different avenue. So it's been challenging. It's probably one of our biggest challenges is to make sure, because you need to be able to, when you look at something, think of the store or think of the business. So when it comes to Blake, he monkey around. He came up with that idea, and his trailer has a big monkey on it, and people see it and they know it's monkey around. Okay, so when he started the trash business, what do you think he called it? He called it Trash Monkey, and he uses the same monkey as he has on his. So he's continuing that brand. Through all of his, not all of his businesses have that, but that's an example of one where he was like, I don't know what to call it. And I'm like, well, we were throwing around some monkeys, and he found this monkey inside of a trash can, and we were like, oh, that's kind of cute. And so that's kind of been, that's how he branded that. But again, you got to remember that, again, you're selling the brand. So like in his case, and when his employees are out setting up a bounce house or doing a trash drop off or whatever it is, he's got sweatshirts with their logo on it. They're wearing it. They're selling it. He's had to talk to employees, boys that were his age, that he's like, you know what? We got a report that you were using foul language, or you weren't very kind to the customer or whatever. He's like, listen, I don't have room for that in my business, because you could ruin, you could drive a customer away for the way that you behave. So again, that's your brand. That's your brand. You don't want to be seen as someone that's disrespectful to customers, or you're not making good choices, that kind of thing. So brand is bigger than advertising and the logo, although that's where it starts, okay? Because that's the visual side of things, but then you have to sell it and you got to walk the walk. So that's part of the brand as well.
Very good. Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing some of the struggles you've had, because I think my students need to hear that, because I think they all think that, well, I'm struggling with this, but I'm the only one. And it's good to hear someone who's been in the business world for quite a while that can still be a struggle.
Yeah.
So with being the owner of the business, I guess what's the best part of that, being able to own your own business?
So, you certainly see the rewards of it. In my case, I'm not there every day because, I'm at school, but my reward is when I go to a meeting, or I go to an event, or I see someone on Facebook posting a picture and they're wearing our product. That brings me great pride. And I'm like, oh, I picked that out. Oh, that, whatever that is. Or if someone calls me up and says, hey, Pam, I need help putting things together. It comes natural to me to kind of assemble matching earrings with a top or whatever, but sometimes it doesn't for other people. And so I find great pride when I can use my passion for my love of retail and help other people. That's very rewarding. And I certainly know that's the reason why I do what I do. Our business, we've dealt with a lot honestly over the years. And I would say right now is our toughest time. COVID obviously has affected many, many businesses. Blake saw a decrease in bounce house. If he only would have had the bounce house business, it would have been a tough year. But he started the pallet business right before COVID, and he didn't let up. He used COVID with everybody being shut down as an opportunity. So he could have looked at it as, oh my gosh, people are out of work, or this is what's going on. But people were out of work, but they were still on their phones or on social media. And so he tapped into that and saw it as an opportunity to try to increase his product and sales and so forth. So the advantage, I guess, would be that you can use your creativity, you can share your passion with others. And I know you're probably going to ask, like, what's the downfall of owning a business?
Right.
Okay. I would say time. It's when the employee calls off, you go in.
Right.
When an employee needs help or whatever, you're the one that has to talk them through that. So there's a lot of the disadvantages. It comes with more than just opening your doors and being selling whatever it is that you're selling, or there's, you have someone that has to do bookkeeping. You got to know a little bit about that. You got to know about the marketing piece. You're wearing all the hats unless you hire that out. So my advice to anyone who thinks they want to start a business is obviously make sure it's your passion, and then get as much experience in some, just dabble in some of those things so that maybe you can save money and not hire things out, but you also are making wise decisions, and you're not totally reliant on the person that you've hired. So I can think over the years situations where, our accountant might say something and then we're like, oh, okay, that's the advice he's giving us. But at the end of the day, this is what our bottom line is. And so you got to have a kind of a good understanding of just the basic levels when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I know we're not talking about Millstream, although that's the hat I wear.
Feel free to throw
it's
it in.
a great opportunity. Any courses like that, whether they're at Van Buren or whether they're online or whether it's at Millstream, wherever, right now is the time to just start exploring some of those things and getting, some of those skills, those foundational skills, because you're not too young to start a business. So I would say any high school kids, you're not too young. You can certainly dabble, and sometimes, it might be just a high school business and you choose to do something else after high school, but it might lead into something bigger, or maybe it'll flow into something else. But yeah, the advantages definitely are that, you kind of create your own schedule, but the disadvantages are you're at the mercy of others a lot.
Right.
Certainly, again, when it comes to finances, yeah, it's the advantages, you kind of control that, but on the flip side, you kind of don't control that because it's all about how the general public reacts to whatever it is that your business is about.
Right.
So
I love how a few times you talked about how, you just suggested, being well-rounded, that, have a little bit of bookkeeping knowledge, so forth, but also the idea that you've hired people to help you with your branding and so forth. And, I think that's important for students to hear that, hey, I don't have to know everything.
no,
I can get help from other people and so forth. But that also ties into the next thing I'd like to talk about, which is networking. And how have relationships played a role in your success as a business owner, your success just building the business, so forth?
I would say networking is at the very top of any business. We lean on a lot of people. Okay. We had a computer issue this weekend. I put it out on Facebook. Hey, we need some help. And within an hour, I was meeting with somebody that knew somebody else. And we were able to solve our problem almost instantaneously. Now, sometimes it doesn't always work that fast, but there will be times that you will need people for their advice or for their services, and you need to know who to turn to or how to you need to have that network of people. Honestly, I would say when I do my hiring, it's all about networking. I don't necessarily put an ad in the newspaper. I've done that before, and it's not the kind of employee that comes through the door that I want. So I network with people and say, hey, does anybody have anybody in this age range that fits these qualifications? And it's usually almost everybody I've hired is because they know somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody. But I would say in Blake's Blake has built his whole business on knowing people and networking. And that started because he was going to auctions. Every morning, as soon as he got his driver's license, he would stop at Fort Finley Donut Shop and he would sit at the bar and talk with the 60, 70, 80-year-old men that were sitting there. And he would eat his donut. They were drinking a cup of coffee and he would just chit chat. Well, that has led into, those are the same people that come to his auctions. And now those are people that are telling people about his pallet business. So he has used all of his businesses solely based on networking and getting to know other people. We laugh, we can't go anywhere in this town where people don't say, oh, you're Blake's mom. Blake knows a lot of people. And that is all because of, he's networked and he takes the time to talk to people. I mean, it comes down to, you can't build your network unless you're willing to sit and talk with people and get to know people. And so that's what I love about my shop when I'm in the store and I sell online too, like in front of the camera for Facebook. And so when I do a Facebook live show, I do it every single week. And I get to know the ladies' names, but I don't always get to meet them. And when they come through the store and say, oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm like, oh my gosh. Because in my head, sometimes I have a different, I don't know who they are, but you have a different idea of who they are. And so you get to chit chat with them. And so we've gotten to know people by just talking with them. And again, the networking is so important because you will need, you want people to patronize your business.
Right.
And you also need people to lean on when you need something. And it's not all about just running to people when you need something, because if they could say, step aside, I got a bunch of people in line. But if you've taken the time to get to know them and you've networked with them a little bit, they might move you to the front. And that's what happened yesterday for us. I mean, someone was able to make a connection for us and we were able to get our services rendered quickly.
Good. So last few questions here. As students have been thinking and as we've been working, I have a few students that are really interested in investing and things like that. And knowing that you own your own business, a lot of people, if they work for a marathon or whatever, they might have a 401k and so forth. But as a business owner, you pretty much have to consider your own retirement. I realize you have your STRS through the school and so forth, but yeah. I guess let's assume you didn't have the school retirement. What advice would you give to people that are owning their own business for them to plan for the future and not just, look to next week, but look 20, 30, 40 years down the line to prepare for retirement?
Yeah. So I'm really not a good expert in this area. I'm going to be honest with you. And when I say my husband does the finances, I truly mean that. He'll say, Pam, you can spend this much this week, or Pam, you can't spend. That's about as fine. That's about it. I do run the finances of our school though, and I have help in that area. Right. But I'm not really, I can tell you that it's important that you think about your future. So, if you're a small business owner, you don't get health insurance. And paying in for health insurance can be very expensive. So, so you need to be thinking about that and planning for that. You need to be planning for your retirement someday. And those are things that we've really had to, I would say, steer Blake in the direction of, because he wasn't thinking that along that line. And honestly, my husband and I are even not that, like I said, I'm not the expert. My husband's not the expert, but we have turned him over to an accountant and to a financial investor. And so they're the ones that talk to him about where you should invest your money and what you should do. At the same time, we giggle because his girlfriend at the time, they dated all through high school, and like I said, they just got married. But we say to her, she's very valuable to him because she's the one that carries the health insurance. Oh, yeah. And so, he was able to marry someone that has health insurance that he can go on her plan. Actually, that's not really the case. She doesn't have health insurance yet because of the job she has, but it'll come. Right. She's a brand new teacher long story, but she's like a teacher's aide at the moment. So, but when she gets her own classroom someday, she just graduated. When she gets her classroom someday, her job will come with health insurance, and that will allow Blake to get on her plan. But at the same time, they need to think about retirement. They need to, and that's where we can steer him in that direction, because we're closer to the age of retirement, that we can be thinking about that. So it's not just, I think sometimes people think of fast cash. They think of, okay, I've got the business, I've got cash in my hand, and that's how I'm going to live. But there's so many other things. You got to reinvest it back in your business. You got to think about putting some aside for, whether it's healthcare or retirement and so forth. But that's where you're going to probably, unless you've got a good understanding of that, or someone in your life has a good understanding of that, you're going to have to lean on other people to really give you some support in that area. Because the last thing you want to do is to work hard and blow everything away, and then you're not planning for your future, and God forbid you get injured and you're not able to work. So we really pushed that across to Blake when he was moving bounce houses, and we're like, you are great, like you're in your teens / early 20s, and you've got the stamina to do this. But when you're 30, can you imagine when you're 40 and when you're 50, kept pulling those bounce houses around and setting those up? Your body's not going to probably be able to do that. So you have to be able to think about that. Where are you going in regards to that? And how does that look like for you? So, you got to plan ahead. You got to think ahead, and you got to work past that immediate. But Investing, I'm not really the good expert in that area, but I surely have people that I lean on for that.
Right. Perfect. Good. All right. Well, my last question. Well, actually, I take it back. One more question.
Okay.
You do not have a degree or anything specifically related to business. You just kind of jumped in and learned as you went and so forth. And obviously you've been very successful with that. So in your opinion, it's possible to do that? Or how important do you think getting that college education would be when it comes to business or something along those lines?
Here's what I say about that. You need to figure out what the end goal is and how are you going to get there? So does it require a college degree? Some of the things do. It depends on what business you're talking about. Or is it something that you can attend seminars or go to some classes and take some coursework? I would say no one can run a successful business and just go start it up blindly. They have to have some understanding. If, like I said, it first starts with a passion, but then you have to have some knowledge about it. I remember, and I can honestly remember when we went to market for the first time, and some lady's like, "Oh, you need to go to Atlanta. There's a building there. It's called the Market, and it's like 100. I don't know. There's 100 showrooms on each floor, and there's like 50 floors." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds massive. That's fun. I like to shop, But I remember getting there, and I remember thinking, I think I honestly had an anxiety attack. There was so much to look at and so much to know and understand. And that first time I went there with I didn't really know. I didn't even know what to ask. I remember the vendors asking me questions and I was like, I don't know, So you just you keep an ear open. You listen to what other people do. When you sit down for lunch, you talk to other people that own boutiques. And then I travel all over. It doesn't matter where we go. Our kids know any family vacation that we went on, we would stop in a small town and I would go and I would boutique shop because I needed to see how they display stuff. I needed to see what products they had. I needed to see, that was my research. So we giggle because my kids at one point said, we've never gone on a family vacation where we just sit by the beach and relax because it was constantly doing research for the business. And like I said, I have 4 kids. Blake's our baby. There's 10 years difference between our kids. And he grew up in my business. And I think that's why he kind of was okay to be a risk taker. He saw all the risks that we took. He was behind the cash register at the age of 10, running the cash register for our employees. It was when we got to the age of high school age, and he was in our store and girls were trying on prom dresses. And I remember saying to him, okay, you got to move away from the dressing rooms. So that was cute. You could comment to girls when you're 8 or 9, but now it looks creepy when you're standing by the dressing rooms and you're 17, 18. So we laugh about that. But he grew up in that atmosphere. So yeah, I think it's the possibility. There's so many possibilities. It's looking, researching, coming up with an idea, having a passion. You might not even be the best at it, but you can be the best at it. Right. With just, it takes practice. I mean, I didn't open up my boutique. My boutique looks nothing like when we first opened. And I laugh at some of the things that I used to do, but you just evolve. And I would say Blake would say the same thing. You just evolve and you see where it goes. But it's been a great ride. Like I said, we're seeing what the next phase is going to be for trends because things are changing in the world of retail right now. So we're spinning some different ideas around and we're meeting with some different people to see where that's going to go. In regards to Blake's businesses, he's constantly, like I said, trying to see where it's going to go in his regard. And right now, the leaf world is real busy, so he's out doing leaves. And if it snows next week, he's ready for snow removal because that'll be the next thing. You just got to keep pushing. It's all about hard work. Can't be afraid to work hard.
Perfect. How many years has Trends been open?
We've been open for 12 years.
Okay.
We've been in like I said, 2 different locations, but yeah, I think we just celebrated our 12th anniversary.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Last question. What is something you now know about careers that you wish someone would have told you while you were in high school?
Um, I would say about careers in general. I think I wish I would someone would have allowed me to explore. So I always thought, okay, I'm going to be a teacher because my mom was a teacher. So my mom was a teacher and my dad worked at Cooper Tire. Those are the two avenues that I was exposed to. Okay. But I don't honestly remember ever having a career day or even having anything related to exploring other careers. The most important thing that kids can do, it doesn't matter if they're middle school or high school age, is to job shadow. Go into a business. If you think you want to be an accountant, go in and follow an accountant, even if it's just for a few hours. See what they do. Because you can watch things on TV and what an accountant does on a TV show or whatever, and that might not be reality. We laugh about Grey's Anatomy and some of those medical things that's not really what happens in the medical world. So I would say get out and explore it. And I wish someone would have done that with me. I don't think things would have changed. I still think I would have become a teacher, but who knows? I mean, if my eyes would have seen other things, I might have gone into something different. And that's why right now I feel like I'm in the best of both worlds because I love retail. I love shopping. I don't even have to buy it for myself. I just love to shop. So I'm kind of fulfilling that void or fulfilling that passion, I should say, by my business. But I'm also able to fulfill my passion for working with kids and being in the educational setting. And I'm blessed because my employer allows me to do both. Sometimes it's hard, it gets a little sticky, but I try to just, here's when I'm at school and here's when I'm doing my business and that kind of thing. But I would say I wish someone would have allowed me to explore a little bit more. And really and truly, we have career days and that's a good snapshot. But really and truly, it's all about getting in there and doing a job shadow of some type, just for even a couple hours. If you can do it for a day or longer, that's great. And I know when kids come to Millstream, some of our programs have that. And so they naturally, that's embedded in their curriculum. But you don't even have to be a Millstream student. If you're sitting there and you're a senior in high school and you're like, I don't really know what I'm going to do next year. I'm going to college, but I don't know what I'm going to do. Okay, you better start thinking about what you want to do before you start throwing money at that. And okay, now I think I'm really good with numbers. Okay, well, what could I do in this regards? The other thing is I didn't have anybody sit down with me and look at what I was good at. So, a career assessment or having something to show my aptitude of what I was good at is always a plus. We did that with Blake. We didn't do that with our other kids because I don't even think I knew about it. But once I became the Millstream and I knew that the career assessment was available, we made him go through that test. And he was able to come out with what am I good at and what are my interests and do they align? And so his number one, interesting enough, his number one job that came out was auctioneering. And the assessor said, I've never seen that come out on someone's assessment. But so he's using those skills every day. It doesn't matter what business he's in, he's selling and marketing and branding and all of that. And that's all part of being an auctioneer. So certainly explore. This is the time to explore because sometimes when you grow up and you have a family and life gets a little crazy, it's hard to change. So you want to be able to explore something now and be prepared to think about doing that. Maybe not for the rest of your life, because I know things have changed and you can move into different positions and do, with different companies and so forth. But when I was young, it was all about sticking with a job and staying, your entire life with that. So if you have that mindset, it's all about really following your passion and making sure you like what you do, because getting up in the morning won't be very fun if you don't like what you do. So absolutely.
All right. Well, perfect, Pam. I really appreciate you joining us and talking to us and sharing some of your wisdom from the experiences you've had, and greatly appreciate that. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. If anybody wants a job shadow, Blake and I are available.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. And hope you enjoyed this episode.